Lots to talk about from last night's town council meeting. We bring you details on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Friday, January 18th, 2013. I'm Sarah Colvin. Well, there is still more work to be done on several proposed problem property ordinances here in the town of Barnstable. After more than an hour of discussion, town council last night did pass 2013-031, the general problem property ordinance. However, building and property maintenance, comprehensive occupancy, rental properties, noise, and rental registration still on the table. Councilors will meet for a workshop session February 14th to further discuss. Public hearings are expected to resume on the 21st. Thursday's meeting began with a presentation on school safety. Chief of Police Paul McDonald comments on the current state of affairs.
We have a full-time officer assigned to the high school. We do have the adopted school where a police officer is assigned to the other 6 schools, almost on a full-time basis. Besides that, the deputy has come up with a deployment of patrol forces for all 3 shifts, where every officer assigned to a sector will spend X amount of time in all schools for all 3 shifts. Most of that burden falls on a day shift. However, the evening shift covers the high school and the intermediate school because of the extra school activity after school. The midnight shift starts covering the schools at 6 o'clock in the morning because some of the schools do open early. There is an emergency drill in place for any person who is unwanted who may enter school. There is an emergency drill that we practice, the police practices and the schools practice. And besides that, the police department also does the school intruder drill, which we do all the time. So, you know, besides assigning a police officer there on a full-time basis, I think we've covered everything up to that.
Following that school safety discussion, Finance Director Mark Milne led a discussion about budget and financing in preparation for the next fiscal year. Town Council approved a change in zoning that will prohibit the storage of commercial fertilizer in certain areas. Hyannis Water Board President Deb Crow spoke in favor of that change.
Recommendation from our consultants. They advised us that our particular zoning amendment is no longer in line with the DEP's requirements. This becomes very important if you need to move any changes or improvements to your water system that need DEP requirements. They can indeed stop it if our zoning is not in line with that. We've been to the zoning board and we received their approval. They had some questions about storage and containers, and we've worked through all that with the town. And we've also gone out and talked to other water departments in town, and we're not sure if you have these or not because some of them were sent into Town Manager Lynch. But we do have support from the Centerville, Osterville, Marston Mills Water Commissioners, from the Cotuit Fire District Water Department, from the Barnstable Fire District Board of Water Commissioners, and from the county, the Barnstable Water Quality Assurance Committee. All of them have voted in their sessions to support the moving forward of this particular amendment to zoning.
Water Systems Supervisor Hans Kaiser clarified an aspect of the change that will allow for storage in certain containers.
The idea would be to make sure that the fertilizer stays dry and under cover. It would have to be on a cement slab. The storage needs to follow the fertilizer's manufacturer's recommendation. It needs to be secured and locked to protect from children and animals. It needs to be posted as a fertilizer storage facility. And if it's a liquid fertilizer, you need 125% of secondary containment and keep it separated from petroleum products. These are the issues that we discussed that is reasonable to expect. The other issue you have to realize is this is only for new commercial storage of fertilizer. All existing people that store fertilizer on a commercial level are grandfathered in. Mm-hmm. In all practicality, I talked to the people in the golf course, I talked to the people at structures and grounds. Most people, also the larger landscapers, they never store commercial fertilizer, big quantities, for a very long time at all, because it's just too costly, and it goes bad if you store it for a long time.
That change was approved. As mentioned earlier in the newscast, Town Council did spend a great deal of time discussing proposed problem property ordinances, but only passed one. Laura Cronin of the Greater Hyannis Civic Association showed support for many of those changes.
And just to make some clarification, that this is an existing ordinance already on the books. All we're proposing is to include the landlord in part of this process, like we've discussed before, in making them involved and holding them accountable for this type of interaction. It's probably number one complaint that the neighbors talk about, police talk about, the people talk about that they have in their neighborhoods and in their area, and we're looking to try to get some accountability back onto the landlord, and this is one way we propose to do it. Thank you.
Town Council approved fee changes for the Regulatory Services Department. Director Tom Geiler explains.
With me tonight is Richard Scally, our Consumer Affairs Supervisor. This is a request for fee increases. We normally would have brought these forward a few months ago, but the state was working on some legislative changes affecting some of these weights and measures fees, so we had to wait till that finished. What is before you is these are all fees for the Weights and Measures program. These are not for a permit or a license. These are for services. The last time the fees were changed were back in 2008. The average increase is less than 2% a year. The reschedule is to bring them up to the full cost recovery level.
Council also approved a conservation restriction from the Barnstable Housing Authority to the Barnstable Land Trust. Paula Pariseau spoke in favor.
I'm here on behalf of Jackie Barton and the Barnstable Land Trust to request that the Town Council approve the perpetual conservation restriction from the Barnstable Housing Authority to the Barnstable Land Trust. A little bit of background. This is a regulatory restriction. It is a requirement of a permit issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Barnstable Housing Authority to develop approximately a 7-acre site, approximately 5 acres of which must be protected in perpetuity with a conservation restriction. The Barnstable Housing Authority approached the Barnstable Land Trust and asked them if they would hold that restriction, which the Barnstable Land Trust agreed to do. This particular conservation restriction has been reviewed by the Barnstable Housing Authority, the Barnstable Land Trust, the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services, the Massachusetts Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, the Massachusetts Historical Commission, the Town of Barnstable Conservation Commission, and the town's LAPC. Chris Clark spoke to it earlier tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions the councilors might have.
And finally, Town Manager Tom Lynch announced that the town has received an award.
Very pleased to have learned today that the town of Barnstable is a recipient of the Commonwealth Award. This is given every 2 years by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and it's for a city, town, or community-based organization that has demonstrated the central role of arts and culture in building healthier, more vital, more livable communities. These Commonwealth Awards will be made formally at the Massachusetts State House on Tuesday, February 19th between 1 and 4, and any and all that can attend would like to have a delegation go up. So we're very excited and recognize the hard work of the Growth Management Department, Melissa Hirsch, who's our Arts and Cultures Coordinator and has worked very closely with our business community and others to achieve this recognition.
Council met for nearly 3.5 hours last night. You can watch the meeting in its entirety online at town.barnstable.ma.us. Council will meet for another workshop on those problem property ordinances on February 14th. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.